I want to address what I know is top of mind for all Canadians. Yesterday, I spoke with President Trump, and I reiterated the facts. Our border is secure, and less than 1% of the illegal fentanyl entering the United States comes from Canada. Even so, we took action with our $1.3 billion plan to further strengthen our border. I also stressed that the tariffs the U.S. administration chose to impose will hurt American workers and businesses, and that, as our shared history has proven, we should work together instead to tackle today's challenges rather than fighting one another. Canada's ministers, officials, and I will continue to engage with our American counterparts. Our goal remains to get these tariffs, all tariffs, removed. In the meantime, we'll be taking action to support Canadians through the tough times ahead. You can count on leadership right across the country, municipalities, provinces, and indeed, your federal government. But mostly, you can continue to count on each other. Canadians have been there for each other, for small businesses, for local producers, for friends. Canadians will pull together and continue to pull together with deep, deep pride in country as all of us stand together to defend Canada.
Trump backing down as the markets nosedive. The president pumping the brakes on his trade war as major concerns about the U.S. economy grow tonight. The Dow losing 428 points, right now on track for its worst week in 2 years. And the Nasdaq is now in correction territory. That means it's down 10% from its peak, 7% since Trump took office. And they are down even as Trump gave in to Mexico and Canada today, pausing his 25% tariffs.
Some of these exemptions that have been announced and some of these temporary delays, have you been influencing those decisions because of the market reaction?
Well, there are no delays at all. No, nothing to do with the market. I'm not even looking at the market.
Of course, there was delays, right, because they were going to do them. Then he had the calls with the Trudeau and Sheinbaum and delayed them a month, and now here we are. Now they're delayed again. As for not looking at the market, that would be new, because for years, Trump has been aggressive about touting just how well the markets do when he's in charge.
Since the election, the stock market has broken one record after another. The stock market is good because a lot of people think we're going to win the election. We had a great stock market. We're hitting record stock market numbers. Another great all-time stock market record. The stock market's up again.
Well, now it's down. We're not hearing about it. And his on-again, off-again trade war is setting alarms off around the world. I mean, heads of state, investors, consumers, nobody really knows whether to take Trump seriously, because he does continue to say he's going to do them and there's no way he won't. And then he delays it, pauses it. The question is whether he's crying wolf. Nobody is clear at this point where this is. One thing is for certain, though, underneath all of this is that prices have gone up. Prices have gone up at least 3%. Over the past month. Egg prices and housing, obviously, prices have gone up. The thing is, though, if you listen to Trump and some of his wealthier allies, these price increases are a small price to pay for the MAGA agenda.
As American people ready to get the country back on track and do what it needs to, or do what it takes to make that happen, absolutely. We're going to have to adjust some prices for it.
Now, we're going to have to adjust some prices for it. Republican Senator Mark-Wayne Mullen, I mean, look, that's his point of view, but it may be easier for him than others. He's reportedly worth at least $31 million, one of the wealthiest members of Congress. This is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had to say about it.
Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream.
Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream. Well, that's actually a really big topic of conversation, but it may be true for Secretary Bessent. He is a former hedge fund manager. He is worth at least $521 million. So it is true for him. And then there's Trump.
There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Perhaps a little disturbance to somebody who says he's a billionaire. But to most Americans, his disturbance is serious turbulence. Surging prices are hurting Americans, and it is not what they expected.
Under my plan, incomes will skyrocket, inflation will vanish completely.
Jeff Zeleny is out front live outside the White House. So, Jeff, I just want to start with one thing that Trump said here, among others, but this one really stood out to me. He says he doesn't watch the markets. That would be a first if it's the case.
I mean, Aaron, skeptical eye rolls, even from the president's advisors and admirers over those 7 words, I don't even watch the market. But the market is watching the White House, and the uncertainty that has been here at the White House really over the last several days over this threat of a trade war, an actual trade war, a reversal of a trade war, all left to what is next. And the president, again, in the Oval Office today, said he is not going to make exemptions for the April 2nd round of reciprocal tariffs. That, of course, is an open question because he has made exemptions when the automakers came calling. He made exemptions again today when the president of Mexico said that they are cracking down on fentanyl. And she showed him some data that just showed that fentanyl production was down. So look, the bottom line to all of this, you can just see the competing advice coming from advisors. Peter Navarro, for example, the top trade expert here, has been really leaning into these tariffs. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, has been sending signals to the market that the president is going to change his mind hours before he does so. But the market clearly has been rattled by this. So the question is what comes next in all of this. There's a lot of concern on Capitol Hill from Republican lawmakers and others. Yes, they still deeply support this president. He has a big control of the House and Senate, there's no doubt. But the markets are one thing he has always loved and watched. The markets are giving their thoughts to the president, and it certainly is not an A+ grade, Aaron.
Certainly not at this moment. All right. Thank you very much, Jeff Zeleny. Jared Bernstein is chair of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors, and former Republican Governor Mark Sanford, also a former congressman and served on the Budget Committee. So I appreciate both of you very much. Governor, can I start with you? You see the markets responding. You know, there was a day, actually there was a day a month ago when the president said he's going to do tariffs, and then when he backed down, then the markets go back up. That wasn't the case now, right? There's been this kind of whiplash of I'm going to, I'm not going to, I'm going to, maybe one too many times. What do you think the effect of this on again, off again trade war is going to be? Governor, can you hear me?
Oh, I thought you said Jared. I apologize.
No, sorry.
What do I think the effect's going to be? I think it's going to be disastrous. You know, people go down to the local bank because it sends signals that there's stability there. And what the president right now is doing both domestically and internationally is sending a signal that there is not stability, and people don't invest into instability. It's the reason that a lot of money doesn't pour into third world countries, because they have no idea what's going to happen next. And if that's the operating environment that businesses have to look at, they're going to put the brakes on, and you're not going to see the domestic investment that he's talked about, and you're not going to see the jobs he's talked about, and you are going to see inflation. So I'm quite worried, and I think the markets obviously are too.
And Jared, that you have one chart that actually speaks to exactly what the governor just said, the uncertainty index.
Yeah, the governor is spot on. If you look at the spikes in that chart, it's a chart of uncertainty caused by trade policy that lurches the way we've seen. And markets and investors really don't like that. As you said, the market, the Dow, is down 1,500 points this week. Today, the NASDAQ down 5% over the week, as you said, in correction territory. I think the one reliable force that can protect American consumers from the price increasing impact of these harmful tariffs on Canada and Mexico is, in fact, the stock market. The president doth protest too much when he says otherwise. We know the record on that. Yeah. I also, though, think we should be clear, as Jeff was, that the call with President Sheinbaum and the progress they've made on fentanyl, that's good news. But the markets are the dominant force here.
So, Governor, I'm also curious, you know, you got to layer in this, what we saw on jobs. Now, you have a more than doubling in the number of layoffs this February from last February, and overall the biggest number of job losses on a month-to-month basis since COVID in 2020. I mean, when you layer that in here, that is very, you talk about unsettling or destabilizing, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to very simple principles, which is investments go to where they're loved and where they have a sense of what's coming next. And in as much as people don't, they're not going to add, small business. I think we'll hold off on hiring that extra person. And cumulatively, that really begins to add up. More worrisome, though, I think, is the inflation component, which I think could really, you talk about something that would bite the Republican Party in the midterms. Oh, my goodness. Think about this. Half of the fresh produce that you see in grocery stores across the country in the wintertime comes from Mexico. A quarter of the lumber supply that goes into the houses that are being built comes from Canada. You begin to put walls up to our immediate borders, and a lot of bad things begin to happen from the standpoint of inflation, which is the flip side of what will hurt people. They can lose their job, or they can see prices go crazy. Either way, they get hurt, and I think there'll be a political consequence.